I put a post up on Facebook today just to get a few Q&A questions. So we'll start by running through a few of those. Right, Matt Ward, what do you think the optimum amount of training in the compound movement for the squat, bench and deadlift? It's quite a difficult question, that one, because everyone's so much different. What I'll start the answer with, like, there's three things that make your training successful that you need. There's frequency, volume and intensity. So only two of those can be up at the same time. So if you train high frequency, you're going to have very high volume, but your intensity has to be lower. So depending on how frequent you train the lift, you have to take those factors into account. So for example, if I was deadlifting, say, twice a week, I'd have to keep my intensity right down and keep my volume up. So you basically increase the volume over 2 sessions. So basically, if I was going to do, for example, speed work or heavy work, I'd have to sort of plan out the sort of intensity I'm going to work up to and make sure it's not too high. So I'd probably be looking at training anywhere between 75% and 80% most of the time and not really go over that too much until I start peaking. And then when I went into a peaking phase, I'll drop the deadlift down to once a week, so aid more recovery time. Then I'll take the intensity quite a lot higher to sort of take into the competition. Squat and bench press, you can normally get away with squatting 2 or 3 times a week, and bench press, you can normally get away with squatting bench pressing 2 or 3 times a week as well. But I think the deadlift's the one that's really going to have the biggest impact on you. Here's a good question from Nick Whitecross. Do you think you'll see a 500 kilo squat done this year? If so, by who? Very, very, very good question. Only 3 names can come into that answer. You got Andrei Milanichev, you got Eric Lillibridge and Zaire. We'll go through each one of those names as we go through. Zaire has the potential to lift anything, but he's a little bit hit and miss in my opinion. So if Zaire hits, he will hit a 500 kilo squat, and there's no 2 ways about that. Andrei Milanichev, very, very, very smart lifter and very, very consistent. He's not going to just put 500 kilos in the bar just to do 500 kilos. If the record say 480 and no one's broke that, he'll do 485. Then he'll basically take the record up in stages. I believe if Zaire may increase the record by a significant amount, then you see Andrei Milanichev jump the weight straight up to break the record and take it back. And then out of the 3, you've got Eric Lillibridge. Eric is phenomenally strong, trains hard all year round, and you can't write Eric out of that equation. But my answer to that question would be, the first person to do it, I think, will be Andrei Milanichev, but he will jump up in stages, and I don't believe he'll do it this year. The only way you see him do it this year, if Zaire was to do a 500 kilo squat first, then you'll see Andrei Milanichev go over.
What is it that makes Milanichev the preeminent squatter in the world?
Consistency. Definitely by far consistency, and he trains smart. He does no ego lifting at all. You won't see him sort of trash talk on the internet, so I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. He's the man that'll walk on the platform and just do it. Okay, a question from Fran Heaton. How do you stay healthy during your meet prep, nutrition, training, frequency, supplements and sleep? I'll start with nutrition. My nutrition stays pretty much the same all the time. I keep my nutrition consistent. You won't see me cut carbs and doing refeeds and all that sort of stuff. I'm just not into that. My diet is everything in moderation and make sure I get a good quality and high level of protein, and it's literally as simple as that. I've got a really good awareness of my body now, so I know what it needs, and I sort of subconsciously sort of eat around that. In terms of training, it comes down to a well-structured training program. So you've got to look at your 3 stages of training. You've got your off-season training, which tend to be quite high volumes with lower intensity. Then you've got your sort of strength building part of your training, which strength for me, in my opinion, is probably best built anywhere from 75 to 85%. So I'll do a big block of training working on building strength. Then I'll taper into competition and working on weights 90% and above. But I'd structure that really well, so I wouldn't be squatting heavy and deadlifting heavy in the same week. And then also you've got to look at fatigue management as well. That's the key when it comes to peaking, is managing fatigue. A lot of people don't tend to manage fatigue too well, so they end up walking in the gym, and when they're doing their biggest numbers walking, they're doing it fatigued. I'm not really a big fan of that. I prefer to be sort of, I feel 100% when I go for the big numbers and make them move well in training rather than grind anything out. I'm not going to do any really hard grinding lifts in training. That's for competition day, not for the gym. So I try and work on technique and keep everything as precise as possible in the gym. In terms of sleep, a lot of that's dependent on my son, whether he sleeps well or not. So in terms of that, you don't really get too much sort of choice about the sort of quality, so the amount of sleep you get and quality. So whatever the sleep pattern is, I just have to work with it. Normally it's generally pretty good though.